Level 1. The Second Son. You are born on May 29, 1917, in Brookline, Massachusetts. You are the second of 9 children. Your father is Joseph P. Kennedy, a banker, bootlegger by reputation, future ambassador to Britain, and one of the richest men in America. Your mother is the daughter of the mayor of Boston. You are not the favorite. That is your older brother, Joe Jr., taller, healthier, more athletic, and the one your father has decided will be the first Catholic president of the United States. You are the spare. You spend your childhood sick. Scarlet fever at 2, a mysterious wasting condition doctors cannot diagnose. Priests give you last rites 3 separate times before you turn 30. You read constantly because you cannot run. None of this is publicly known. The Kennedy family does not discuss illness. Level 2, PT 109. You graduate from Harvard in 1940. Your senior thesis is published as a book, Why England Slept, and becomes a bestseller, mostly because your father buys 30,000 copies and stores them in the family attic. You try to enlist in the army in 1941. The army rejects you. Chronic back problems, ulcers, asthma. Your father makes a phone call to the head of naval intelligence. The Navy waives the physical. You command a small wooden patrol torpedo boat in the Solomon Islands. On August 2, 1943, in the dark, a Japanese destroyer rams PT-109 in half at 20 knots. 2 of your 11 crew are killed instantly. You spend the next 4 hours in shark-infested water, towing a wounded crewman by clenching the strap of his life vest in your teeth, swimming for an island 4 miles away. You and the survivors live on coconuts for 6 days until rescued. You are awarded the Navy and Marine Corps Medal. Your father has the story planted in the New Yorker. Your back, already weak, is now permanently destroyed. Your brother, Joe Jr., dies the next year, in 1944, when his bomber explodes over the English Channel. The political standard passes to you. You did not ask for it. It is not optional. Level 3. The Congressman. In 1946, you run for a Boston congressional seat. You are 29, look 22, and have never held any political position. You also have your father's money and his network. Joe Sr. estimates later that he could have run a horse and won with that budget. You serve 3 terms in the House. You are not particularly distinguished. You are often absent. Addison's disease, a chronic adrenal failure the family will deny you have for the rest of your life, leaves you exhausted and vulnerable to infection. In 1952, you run for the Senate against Henry Cabot Lodge Jr., the establishment Republican who beat your grandfather in 1916. You unseat him. You are 35. Level 4. The book that someone else wrote. You marry Jacqueline Bouvier in September 1953. She is 24, beautiful, and from old money. The wedding has 800 guests. In public, you are the perfect young couple. In private, you are already openly unfaithful and will be for the rest of your marriage. In 1954, your back collapses entirely. You undergo a spinal fusion so risky, you receive last rites for the 4th time. You spend most of the year in bed. During this period, your name appears as the author of a book called Profiles in Courage, short biographies of senators who took unpopular stands on principle. The book wins the 1957 Pulitzer Prize for biography. Most of it is written by your speechwriter, Ted Sorensen. You are now a war hero, a Pulitzer Prize winner, a senator, and a Catholic from a famous family with a beautiful wife. Your father starts spending money. Level 5. The Election. You announce your candidacy on January 2, 1960. You are 42. You have served in Congress for 14 years and accomplished little legislatively. You are running on biography, charm, and a willingness to spend more money than anyone has ever spent on a campaign. Your main obstacle is Richard Nixon, the sitting vice president, more experienced, better prepared on policy, and ahead in the polls. On September 26, 1960, you debate Nixon on television. 70 million Americans watch. Hours before the debate, a New York doctor named Max Jacobson, known to his celebrity patients as Dr. Feelgood, gives you an injection of what he calls a vitamin cocktail. It is mostly methamphetamine. Nixon, recovering from a recent illness, looks pale, sweating, and exhausted on camera. You look tan, calm, alert, and presidential. Radio listeners think Nixon won. Television viewers think you did. Television wins. You defeat Nixon on November 8th by 112,000 votes out of 68 million cast. Allegations of vote rigging in Illinois and Texas, where your father had powerful friends, will follow you to the grave. On January 20th, 1961, at 43, you become the youngest man ever elected to the presidency. Level 6. The disaster. 3 months into your presidency, the CIA presents you with a plan it has been developing under Eisenhower, a covert invasion of Cuba by 1,400 American-trained Cuban exiles to overthrow Fidel Castro. You are skeptical. You are also new, surrounded by experienced national security advisors who tell you it will work, and afraid of looking weak. You approve the operation. You also, at the last minute, withdraw American air support to preserve plausible deniability. On April 17, 1961, the exiles land at the Bay of Pigs. They are pinned down on the beach within hours. Castro's army captures or kills almost all of them in 3 days. You take public responsibility. Your approval rating, paradoxically, jumps to 83%. Privately, you say that you have been an idiot. You no longer trust the CIA. You no longer trust the Pentagon. You no longer trust anyone in a uniform who tells you something cannot fail. 18 months later, this distrust will save the world. Level 7, 13 days. On October 16, 1962, your national security advisor brings you photographs taken by a U-2 spy plane over Cuba. The Soviet Union is installing nuclear missiles 90 miles from Florida, capable of reaching almost any American city in under 10 minutes. Your military advisors recommend an immediate full-scale airstrike, followed by a ground invasion. They are unanimous. You refuse. For 13 days, you and a small group meet in secret. You order a naval quarantine of Cuba. The word blockade is technically an act of war, so you call it something else. You write personal letters to Khrushchev. You open a back channel through your brother Robert to the Soviet ambassador. You are running on amphetamine injections from Dr. Feelgood, daily procaine shots for your back, cortisone for your Addisons, and barely sleeping. The American people see a calm young president handling a crisis. On October 28th, Khrushchev agrees to remove the missiles. In exchange, you publicly promise not to invade Cuba and secretly promise to remove American missiles from Turkey. The secret part is kept for 30 years. This is the closest the world has ever come to nuclear war. The Joint Chiefs the next day call the Soviet retreat the greatest defeat in our history and want you to invade Cuba anyway. You ignore them. You tell an aide, those sons of bitches would have started World War III, Level 8, the peak. In June 1963, you stand at the Brandenburg Gate in West Berlin and tell a crowd of 500,000 Germans, Ich bin ein Berliner. The crowd roars. 2 weeks earlier, you have called civil rights a moral issue and committed the federal government to it for the first time in American history. You send legislation to Congress. It is the bill that, after your death, will become the Civil Rights Act of 1964. In August, the United States, Britain, and the Soviet Union signed the Limited Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, the first arms control agreement of the Cold War. You consider it the most important achievement of your presidency. You announce that America will land a man on the moon before the end of the decade. You will not live to see it. You are 46. Your approval rating is 60%. Your re-election in 1964 looks routine. Level 9, Dallas. On November 22, 1963, you fly to Texas to mend a feud between two factions of the state Democratic Party. Your political advisors warn you that Dallas is a hostile city. You go anyway. You ride in an open-top Lincoln convertible. The bubble top is removable. You have it removed because the day is sunny and the crowds want to see you. At 12:30 p.m., the motorcade turns onto Elm Street through Dealey Plaza. 3 shots are fired from the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository by Lee Harvey Oswald, a 24-year-old former Marine who once defected to the Soviet Union, returned, and now works in the building you are passing. The first shot misses. The second hits you in the upper back and exits your throat. The third hits you in the head. Jacqueline, in pink, climbs onto the back of the convertible to retrieve a piece of your skull. You are pronounced dead at Parkland Hospital at 1 p.m. 2 days later, while being transferred between jails on live television, Oswald is shot dead by a Dallas nightclub owner named Jack Ruby. The Warren Commission concludes Oswald acted alone. Roughly 60% of Americans have never believed this. You are 46 years old. You have been president for 2 years and 10 months. Level 10. The Myth. Your widow, 4 days after the assassination, gives an interview to a journalist named Theodore White and tells him you and she had loved listening to the soundtrack of the Broadway musical Camelot before bed. She suggests, gently, that this is what the administration should be remembered as. White prints it. The metaphor sticks. There was no Camelot. There was a sick young man held together by injections, married to a woman he was openly unfaithful to, who had stolen at least one election with his father's money, written a book somebody else mostly wrote, won a Pulitzer for it, and presided over both the worst foreign policy disaster of his era and possibly the most consequential act of restraint in human history. Almost everything you accomplished was completed by Lyndon Johnson, the vice president you had used and disliked. He passed your civil rights bill. He passed your tax cuts. He launched the Great Society programs that went further than anything you would have proposed. You were one of the worst prepared presidents of the 20th century. You were also, in October 1962, the only person standing between the human species and nuclear war, and you got it right. You wanted to be remembered as a great president. You died too soon to find out if you would have been one. The country decided to remember you that way anyway. And now you are history.